The message came at 2:13 a.m. A single line. We need to talk before she wakes up. No name, no punctuation, just urgency, raw and sour. I stared at it in the bluish dark of the hallway, the house still smelling faintly of burnt coffee and damp winter air. My daughter's room was across from mine, her door cracked open the way she liked it, just enough to hear footsteps, just enough to know she wasn't alone in the world. I leaned against the wall and read the message again. We need to talk before she wakes up. My first thought wasn't fear, it was recognition. I had felt something shifting in the house for weeks. A glance too long, a silence too heavy. My wife moving around me like someone afraid of being seen, even when she smiled, especially when she smiled. And the car, my daughter's car, still at the body shop, still a mess of twisted metal and metallic lies. I exhaled slowly. Downstairs, a floorboard creaked, soft, hesitant. My wife. She wasn't pacing like someone ready to confess. She was pacing like someone rehearsing. The phone vibrated again. I'm sorry. Please. That word, sorry, landed wrong. Too early. Too prepared. I slid the phone into my pocket and stepped away from the wall. The house felt colder than the night outside. I moved down the staircase one slow step at a time, watching the living room glow faintly under the lamplight. She stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. When she turned and saw me, her face tightened, just slightly. Enough. Something was coming, something that wanted to stay hidden, and I was already awake. She didn't start with the truth. People rarely do. She started with the car crash, again. Her sister borrowing the keys, taking my daughter's new car, slamming it into a tree, and then, somehow, convincing the police she was doing my daughter a favor by stopping a runaway teen. The lie was absurd, but my wife backed it, repeated it, polished it. That night, as she stood trembling by the window, she spoke as if that deception were the center of everything, the foundation. But foundations don't shake, they crack. She's been so stressed, she whispered. Maybe we should be more patient with her. She's been through a lot. Patient? With the girl whose car had been stolen, wrecked, and weaponized against her. A familiar heat rose beneath my ribs. I watched my wife's hands. They weren't shaking from guilt. They were shaking from fear. But not the fear of what she'd done, the fear of what I might already know. I studied her face carefully, the way her eyes avoided mine, the way her breath stalled before every sentence, as though she were editing something internally. There was something else here, buried beneath the car and the lies and the sudden urgency. A connection I hadn't made yet. A betrayal I hadn't named. The night of the crash replayed in my mind, my wife leaving the house for just a minute, returning with her sister, both strangely composed, rehearsed even. The way my wife held her phone slightly turned away from me. The way my daughter asked, almost whispering, why her aunt knew where the spare key was kept. I hadn't confronted any of it. Not then. I only listened. Now, as my wife crossed her arms and looked down at the floor, I felt the suspicion crystallize into something cold and sharp. This wasn't about the car. It had never been about the car. And as her voice broke on another excuse, another attempt to distract me, I finally recognized the fracture line running directly through our lives. Her sister hadn't acted alone. My wife had been covering more than one crime, and the truth was already pushing its way to the surface. I began quietly. Detachment is a kind of weapon when used correctly. I moved through the next 3 days like a shadow, calm, measured, predictable, because predictable people are invisible. While my wife tiptoed through the house with anxious smiles, I visited the body shop. I studied the report. I spoke to the responding officer. I checked timestamps, location pings, phone logs. Every detail tightened the noose around the unspoken truth. My wife's phone record showed messages at the time of the crash, to her sister, to an unsafe number. 33 calls in 2 hours, all before the police arrived. But it was the unsafe number that held the real fracture, a name hidden behind it. A name I recognized, someone I had once believed was a friend. My wife had been living a double life so carelessly intertwined that the crash wasn't the mistake, they were. In the evenings, I moved through the house quietly, watching. My daughter sensed something was wrong, but stayed silent. She inherited that from me, the ability to wait while the truth sharpened itself. My wife tried to be normal. She made dinner, she folded laundry, she avoided my eyes. All while her phone stayed face down, locked, guarded. I didn't need a confrontation. I needed proof. So I retrieved what the officer had hinted at, a copy of surveillance footage. Grainy, but enough. I watched it alone in my office. My wife's sister steps out of the car. She's frantic, but she isn't alone. My wife emerges from the passenger seat. The breath left me quietly, like a candle being pinched out. She wasn't covering for her sister. She was covering for herself. And then the final piece, a message retrieved from my daughter's phone, one she hadn't shown me because she thought I was already suffering enough. A text from my wife's sister. If you tell him what you saw, she'll lose everything. She, not we. The meaning sat heavy in my chest. My daughter had seen something they were desperate to bury. And I realized I wasn't uncovering a lie. I was excavating an entire hidden architecture of betrayal. I printed everything, all of it, and waited. The truth has its own clock, and theirs had finally run out. The evidence arrived in one neat envelope, the phone logs, footage stills, and a short written statement confirming everything the officer suspected. I placed it on the dining table. My wife walked in, holding her coffee like a shield. She froze when she saw the envelope. Her face drained slowly, like color washing out of a photograph. What is that? I didn't answer. Words would have diluted the purity of the moment. I slid the envelope toward her. She hesitated before opening it. The room filled with the sound of paper shifting, small, fragile, damning. Her breathing hitched. Once, twice. Then the shaking began. She looked up at me with eyes that had already surrendered. You knew. I didn't blink. You were in the car, I said quietly. You helped her stage it, and you let them accuse my daughter. Her lips trembled. A half-formed excuse died in her throat. And then the real collapse, the truth she'd never meant to speak. I didn't want you to find out about him. Him. The unsaved number. The secret she'd buried under layers of manufactured crises. I'm sorry, she whispered. But apologies are nothing when truth has finally taken its shape. I stood perfectly still and watched her unravel. I didn't yell, didn't ask questions, didn't give her the dramatic collapse she had prepared for. I simply handed her my phone, a single message displayed, one I had sent earlier that morning. To her sister, to the officer, to the number she thought she'd hidden. The truth is documented. I won't protect her. My wife's face went white. You told them? No, I said softly. I let you tell them. Everything in that envelope is your own record, your own trail. You built your confession long before I ever asked for it. She covered her mouth, tears forming as the realization struck. You set me up, she whispered. I shook my head. You set yourself up. I just stopped cleaning the mess. Her knees weakened. She reached for the back of a chair. I stepped aside, leaving a clear path between us, an invisible line she could never cross again. And then, almost gently, I added, the officer will call you tonight. He's reviewing the footage. She flinched like I'd struck her. I turned and walked upstairs. Her sobs echoed through the house, brittle and cracking, the sound of a fabricated world collapsing under its own weight. My daughter met me at the top of the stairs, eyes wide. Is it over? She whispered. Yes, I said. It's over. And for the first time in weeks, the air felt breathable. I sat in my office as the evening dimmed into blue shadow. The house was quiet, unnaturally so. My wife stayed downstairs, folding into herself, calling no one because there was no one left to call without implicating herself further. Betrayers always assume their web is invisible. They forget every thread is sticky. I watched the streetlights flicker on. I felt nothing. No pity, no grief, only clarity. The kind that arrives after the storm, when the debris shows you exactly what was broken long before the wind ever touched it. My daughter knocked softly. She didn't come in. She didn't need to. We survived the lie. And survival comes with a certain calm. I stood, opened the window, and let the cold night air wash over me. Some endings are loud. Some burn. This one simply closed. And as the house settled around me, I realized something sharp and quiet. I wasn't the one who walked away. I was the one they pushed, and still couldn't break.